Before we begin this lesson, I want you to consider the question, how does an algebraic expression differ from a numeric expression? This is lesson 1.3, variables and expressions. We discussed that a numeric expression is a mathematical phrase that had numbers, operations, and grouping symbols. So what makes an algebraic expression different is that we will see variables in these expressions, which are letters that represent unknown quantities. We still will see no equal signs because it is an expression and not an equation. First, let's talk about how to write algebraic expressions. We need to make sure we know what certain words represent when we're reading them in a problem so that we can correctly translate it to an expression with symbols and operations and numbers. So pause the video and see if you can sort these terms and phrases into the diagram on your notes with the 4 operations. For addition, we have sum, altogether, and more than. For subtraction, we have difference, less than, and notice I also put more than under subtraction. That's because it depends on what the information is given in the problem. For example, if it says Sarah ate 10 cookies, she ate 6 more than me, how many did I eat? That would be 10 minus 6 equals 4. So depending on the way the problem is worded and what information they give you, you could actually see more than represent addition or subtraction. So we can't just look for the word, we have to read the context of the problem. Multiplication, we have product, the word of, which is when we're talking about a fraction or a percent of a whole, that is multiplication. So a fraction of a whole is multiplication. And then we have each and per, and then we have altogether. This one you will see up here in both places because it could be multiplication if they're talking about, let's say you buy 5 t-shirts and they are $8 each. How much does it cost altogether? That could be multiplication. You could also obviously use altogether to say, I ate 2 pieces of pizza and my sister ate 3. How many did we eat altogether? That's 5. This one here, each and per, you'll see I also put that under division. So division is quotient, or if something is split evenly, that's division, and then you'll see this each and per again. And then just like the more than with addition and subtraction, this depends on what the information is that's given in the problem, how it's worded. So again, if I have 5 t-shirts and they're $8 each, or per t-shirt, what's the total? That would be multiplication. If I said I spent $40 total and I bought 5 t-shirts, how much did they cost per t-shirt? That would be division to give me the answer of $8 per shirt. So you could see that depending on the context of the problem, it could be used for either. So it's not just looking for the words, but also reading the context of the problem. So let's give these a try. We're going to translate the sentence into an algebraic expression with numbers, operations, and variables. A bill for dinner costs $D and is split evenly among 5 friends. Write an expression for the cost of one person's bill. This would be D divided by 5, the cost divided by 5 friends. A box of pens costs $3 more than a box of pencils. The box of pencils costs P. Write an expression for the cost of the box of pens. This would be P plus 3. You swam m meters per minute for 8 minutes. Write an expression for the total number of meters that you swam. Since it's asking for the total, that is multiplication. When they give you the total and they ask for one of the other pieces of information, that is when it's division. Let's try a few others. David has 9 less comic books than Mark. Mark has C comic books. Write an expression for the number of comic books that David has. this would be C minus 9. We would need to take the number of comic books that Mark has and take away 9 from it, not the other way around, 9 minus C. That would be a different problem. Our recipe calls for C cups of flour. Ethan wants to make half of the recipe. Write an expression for the number of cups of flour Ethan should use. This one could be written a couple ways. I wrote half of the recipe. So this is where we mentioned earlier that half of a fraction of something is multiplication. So that's why I wrote it as half times C. But since this is a fraction with a numerator of 1 on top, we can actually do it as C divided by 2, and that would give us the same result like this, or you could write it like this. Now, if it said he wants to make 3/4 of the recipe, you would not be able to write it in those alternative ways. You would need to write it as 3/4 of C, which is a fraction of something is multiplication. At a deli, you buy 4 sandwiches that cost $D each and 1 drink for $3. Write an expression for your total cost. This would be 4 sandwiches times the price per sandwich, that's D, 4 times D, plus your 1 drink for $3, 4D plus 3. And lastly, 8 times the quantity of M plus 1. This is going to say that we want to multiply this whole quantity, M plus 1, by 8. So the way that we can multiply this whole quantity times 8 would be to first add these together and then multiply your answer by 8. But since this is M plus 1 and we can't solve it, we need to just leave it as M plus 1, but the way that we show that we want to do that first is by putting it in parentheses. So we want 8 times the quantity of M plus 1. We wanted to do this part first and then multiply it by 8. So that's where the parentheses come into play. A group of friends collects baseball cards. Sean has 3 times as many cards as Hunter, and Donnie has 8 fewer cards than Sean. If Hunter has 8 cards, write an expression for the number of baseball cards each friends own. Hunter has H, and Sean has 3 times that many, so that would be 3H. And Donnie has 8 fewer than Sean. If Sean is 3H, then Donnie is 3H minus 8. Part B asks for an expression for the total number of baseball cards that is owned by the 3 friends. That would be all 3 expressions with added together. H for Hunter, 3H for Sean, and 3H minus 8 for Donnie. And lastly, if Hunter owned 25 baseball cards, how many cards does each friend own? Sean is 3 times that, which would be 3 times 25 is 75 cards. And then Donnie is 3 times 25, which is 75, minus 8, which would be 68 baseball cards. And for our last example that are in our notes, Stella had a doll collection. She gave 3 dolls to her sister. Impressed by her generosity, her parents doubled the remaining number in her collection. If Stella started with 16 dolls, how many did she have at the end? So she gave 3 to her sister, so 16 minus 3 is 13, and then they doubled that, which would be 26 dolls. If Stella started with D dolls, how many did she have at the end? Write an expression to represent this for any number of dolls being represented by the letter D. So we know she gave 3 to her sister first, and then her parents doubled that. So how do we make sure that we do the subtraction first? We will put parentheses around it and then multiply that answer by 2. You could write it like this. You can write it like this. But either way, you would have the same result mathematically.